Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Kayleen. This channel is about me promoting my graphic memoir, Mom Remembers Me, about how I use my health and fitness knowledge, I've said this so many times now, to stop my mother with mild dementia from forgetting me, and it worked. And in the process, I started reading a lot of graphic books. I've been a big avid reader my entire life, but I've started liking graphic books now. So I decided I would also start reviewing graphic books on this channel. So I decided, since 1984 is getting very popular now, I watched this movie, which is an old movie. This actually came out, they were filming part of this in 1984. And I'll tell you some stuff that I learned from the extras from this one. And then we have this one. This is a graphic book, and you might not have known about this. So in this book, in the beginning here, it says that you can't show any parts of the book without their permission, and it even says for review. So I emailed this publisher, and they answered back, and they gave me permission to review their book. So I'm reviewing this book. So then what I did when I was reading both these graphic books, so this one too. This one is by Ferdi Nesti, and this one I can't pronounce. I just showed you. I can't pronounce that one. I'm not gonna bother. But I mean, that's a wrong word. But if I try, I know my brain will not get it right, so I don't want to torture and mutilate that name. But which is also a lot about my book. You know, I learned a lot about the brain, and a lot of times when people can't pronounce something, they're not deliberately disrespecting you. Their brain just cannot do it. Their brain cannot go that way. And I've had many discussions with my students, as well as just people in the world, right? And you can't get the word that they're saying, and then you finally say it, and they don't say it back. And I used to always get frustrated thinking, why don't they say it back? And I realized at my old age that they can't. They just can't. So it's not a purposeful disrespect, everything else. So to move on, I'm going to review these 3 books. Keep watching, and if you like, please like and subscribe, and I would love some comments and questions so we can kind of make this a book club comparing the 3, because there are some differences. The 2 graphic books changed the ending. So, as I mentioned in my little intro, I read these 2 books. I read both these 2 books at the same time. I would read one chapter in this book, and then the exact same chapter in this book, and then read the next one in this book, and then read the next one in this. So if it was this book is separated into parts. So I wrote notes and can compare the 2 of them to see similarities, and of course it's always the author's visualization of what they think is the most important, right? So I separated. So if I read chapter 1, part 1 from Namai's book, then I would read that one. Then I would read from Nesti's book, and then I would read chapter 2 from Nesti after 1, and then read chapter 2 from Namai. So I had some really good chances to really compare the 2. So I'm going to show you guys some of my favorites and some of my questions. And I wrote some questions too from reading the book. So if any of you guys are also have a kind of huge interest in this, let's make this a nice book club discussion. So maybe you're studying this in school. I really enjoy sitting down with my journal and planning out how I'm going to do it. And as a teacher, that's what I try to teach my students. If you want to learn something, you have to make the conscious effort to write it down. And as I mentioned in my last video, when I was talking about taking care of my mother and then listening to audiobooks, there is a way to spend time making sure you hear it. So also listening to this textbook. So, oh yeah, I forgot to mention to you guys, I also listen to the textbook on my phone while I'm out walking. So I have all 4. I read these 2 books. I watched this movie, and this is an excellent movie. It has Hurd. which I always remember him from Captain Corelli's Mandolin. He played Penelope Cruz's father in that movie. He's also played in, hundreds of movies. He's a darn good actor. He died, I think, a little while ago. But so I watched all 4. So I have a thorough understanding of this movie, this book. Okay, so where shall we start? So let's start going over. So we've got Nesti and Namai, these 2 books. So I'm going to make sure you guys realize this is Nesti, this is Namai. When I said, I guess I had to pronounce Namai's name there. So I wrote down the similarities and differences. So the differences are in red. So you guys can always read them as well. I put them out here. So what I thought was similarities is the color palette. Both Namai and Nesti decided to go with just a black and a red. And of course there's a little bit of pink in the name here. But both books give you an excellent view of the story. But I started off liking this book better because Nesti gives you more explanations than Namai. But Namai doesn't give you as much explanations in the text balloons or even just the text information and stuff. So in a way, they both complement each other the best, I really think, because, of course, as I learned from studying all the brain books, looking at a picture is 10 times harder for your brain than even playing chess. So Namai has a way of making you really look at the picture and figuring out the information that Nesti just kind of gives you, just in the speech balloon. So you have to think a little bit more with Namai sometimes. So this one gives a little bit more explanation. So what I want to do. So what I want to say, the color palettes are pretty much the same. So there's a little bit more gray. And Namai's book really is more of a film noir. He makes it look like old. It makes you even think of Citizen Kane. And you want to say Red Rum, that's the wrong one. That's The Shining, right? So there's so in this book tells us how, so in Nesti's book, he tells us how the jinn makes him feel, but in Namai's, he shows how the jinn makes him feel. In Nesti's, he gives us more information as Winston enters his home building. Namai drew to look like a film noir style. So, and Nesti showed us how he got the diary, but Namai didn't show us how. He just told us how he got the diary. And all other facts are the same. He showed the frenzy from the hate speech more distinct in Namai's. So let's look at that. So, chapter 1. So this is the hate speech. See, and look at the art in here. This is absolute fabulous, right? I strive to be able to draw as well as Namai. Let's take out my little thing here so you can see the big brother and how that's Goldstein and they're all sitting around. An interesting fact I'll tell you that I learned from the director of this movie. The director of this movie in the extras said that during the filming of these hate speeches, at least 10 or 12 people every single time, just extras, fainted while they were filming the hate speech. So I kept wondering why the hate speech, but it's definitely to make people in control. It's always about to make people in control. So this is the pages from the hate speech. See, this is O'Brien. You know what I kept thinking about when I was watching this? This reminded me of an actor. And in the movie, O'Brien is played by Richard Burton, and he does a darn good job. But when I started watching this movie, I told myself I will not be watching the torture scene, and I didn't. So it is possible to watch this movie and just fast forward past the torture scene. Of course, during the extras, they kept referring to the torture scene and kept showing it. I didn't need to watch the torture scene. I'd already read all of it here. But this reminded me, His name is Brendan Gleeson, and he played in Cold Mountain as Renee Zellweger's father. He's played in a lot, but he reminded me of that actor a lot. So I wanted to definitely tell you. So this is before, right? So, and so if you didn't know about this book was out there, The More the Hate Speech. See, excellent art. And it has a film noir. Right, so let's see, I want to make sure I stay. Oh yeah, I wanted to mention, so there's clear differences in the chapters in both these books. Both of them, it isn't like one big run-on sentence. So then let's go back to this one. So let's see. And I can also go over lots of questions I have with you. Oh, you know what? If any of you guys are Wayne Dyer fans, there's a part of me that thinks that these authors, Aldous Huxley for Brave New World, and even George Orwell, when they're writing it, they're making it happen in the world. So I kept thinking this. I wish there would be more graphic novels and books and just novels that portray the world working right and everybody's getting along and there's no wars. If anybody has read a book like that where there's no problems whatsoever, is that possible? Let me know. Boy, would I love to read a book like that. I don't think I've read a book like that. There's always some kind of problem. But let's write books to make the world a better place. Okay, so we're back to Nesti. So this is, I was talking about how I showed you, he describes more when he's going up to his apartment. And see, Nesti's look of Winston Smith is definitely different than Namai. So there's a definite different feeling to it. And they're both damn good. So I would never, I can't really recommend one or the other. Oh, and then I was thinking about when I started reading chapter 1 and Nesti's first, and it says, wow, can't turn off the TV, but people are so addicted to electronics now that people probably do go most of their life. I turn off my phone every night before I go to sleep. And some people do have telescreens 24/7. So I wanted to point that out, right? Okay, and this is during the hate speech from chapter 1, right? I was talking when he goes to the hate speech. And there are studies showing that even if some people know it's wrong, if the group think and authority tells them to do it, they do it, and even though it's wrong, which sometimes wonder what's happening in the world nowadays, right? So this is during the hate speech. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. But there's a different look, right? Oh, and if anybody has seen the movie Swing Kids, it has the actor from the House TV show, but it reminded me when I was reading this chapter of how the kids are trained. The swing kids during World War II that chased down Jews were trained as well, or as brainwashed as well as this book, right? Oh, I wrote dream analysis. I really enjoy my dreams, watching over my dreams, right? So this is when Winston and Julia meet up out in the woods, right? Definitely good. Yeah, I was always, these two representation of his dream of what happened with him was completely different look, but they're definitely really good. They're both excellent, right? Oh, see, and then look at how he's talking about war, and there's always war between Eurasia and Eastasia. And in the textbook, in the book that he's going to be given by O'Brien later on, it's written that if the three powers, if those three powers, so it's Oceania, Eastasia, and Eurasia, ever really did take control over one of the other two, it wouldn't change their life whatsoever. Makes you wonder about nowadays, right? But I copied this because I like this art here, this whole perspective. Nesti did a darn good job of that. I'm going to try to copy that in my journal just for my own sake. Okay, so let's move on. Let's go back to my notes here to show you the differences, and I think I jumped ahead there. I was probably past page chapter 1, because there are, see, there's 3 parts. This is all 1 through 8 is chapters, is part 1, and there's part 2. But I was going to write the more details about building and Parsons' family and kids is in Nesti's. They both mention the chocolate rations are reduced. Shows in Nesti's version, see I have on the left here, shows and tells us the dream Winston had before his calisthenics and why he tunes that station right. Both show the calisthenics. In the movie, they showed the calisthenics a little bit longer, and of course Winston has a really bad back when he does it all, right? Then the film noir in Namai's kind of draws you in a little bit more, right? Okay, so if we move on to chapter 4, Nesti has longer chapters and more text. Art reminds him of World War II movies and submarines. And art makes the differences. Art makes me think old but futuristic, like Blade Runner. So that's like this one. I was saying that this one actually kind of reminded me of Blade Runner. See, the art somehow makes me think of the old Blade Runner, not the newer one with, well, as Ryan Gosling, the new one, right? Yeah, and this art, I said to copy this, he's thinking and changing his mind, right? To know the art there. So it definitely, see, it has a film noir and it kind of draws you in a little bit more. And it has a World War II look to it, right? The art was fabulous there. You guys can see that, right? Yes. I wanted to show, see the differences in the Eurasian offensive. This is when Winston is working in his job. Around and around he goes. You know, it shows where he gets the picture of the third of the 3 people that he believes that they fabricated all the evidence against them. Okay, see, the chapters are definitely clear. He's going into his cafeteria here before Parsons comes up and talks to him and asks him for razor blades, right? And with just a little bit of red, we need it. See, the look of Winston in Namai's book versus Nesti's book just has a completely different look. I don't think one is better than the other, but I wanted to show it to you. See, here's, oh, you can't see, right? Here's a good picture of Winston, right? Compare the two, but see how the look of it, this has more of a older, even older than World War II, maybe World War I, the art, but it still gives you the gist of it, right? See, the chapters are easily differentiated, which I really liked. I hate it when some of the books just makes it a big long run-on sentence, right? Oh, look at the art here. So, oh, this part was why I put it in here. Reminded me of Planet of the Apes. You know, sometimes reminds me of Planet of the Apes. Okay, so let's see. Let's go back to my notes to tell you guys the differences. There's some dialogue almost, except this. There's sometimes when the gists are exactly the same between Namai and Nesti. So here, looking at my notes here, I wanted to show you guys. So we're still in part 1. I'm up to chapter 6. Nesti describes his wife differently. He wanted to be able to embrace her, but it was like a jointed wooden image in Nesti's book. This is Nesti's book. And then Namai, look at the prostitute, was much more degraded. Yeah, in Namai's story, he showed the prostitute that Winston actually went to, but it had a definite more of a damaged look to her. Plus, I thought it was interesting is because in Nesti's version, he tells us that the prostitute has no teeth. But Namai, I wasn't able to tell that from Namai's book. So let's see, we're moving on to chapter 8, part 1, the 2. And Nesti shows more and explains more of the neighborhood and what could happen. People asking for his papers. Oh, and this is when the shopkeeper in Namai's book reminded me a lot of Robert De Niro. But the Robert De Niro's character, Mr. Charrington in the movie isn't anybody that I recognize. The shopkeeper's place looked like a Victorian era in Namai's. So to get there, steamer was the prole's way of describing a rocket bomb, which I thought was kind of interesting. So he doesn't really explain that in Namai's book, but Nesti's book. The shopkeeper's house looked old, but never upscale like Namai. See, upscale, it was the shopkeeper's house looked a little bit more upscale in Namai's book. So let's go back so I can show you guys that. Let's see. So we're up to chapter 8. That's what I want to show you guys. After the Planet of the Apes. Oh yeah, so here is the look of Mr. Charrington's shop. See, it looks totally different here. I'm going to make sure I got it in here so you guys can see it. But see, he goes in. See, it has a different look to it. See, doesn't he look like Robert De Niro? He does. See, it has a dark look, but it doesn't look so dirty. And of course, in the movie, they talk about the bed bugs, but this doesn't look so dirty, full of bugs. And we know what happens behind this screen of this St. Stephen's, and they sing the song, Here Comes Julia. See? But in Nesti's version, trying to get up to chapter 8. Okay, we're in chapter 6. You can see when he's finding chapter 6 is Nesti's book. See, and of course Julia looks older. Oh no, this is the prostitute. I'm having a brain fart. Yeah, this is when he's just thinking what he wanted to do to Julia before they realized. See? Yeah, I was right. It was a prostitute. This is the prostitute that he went and saw. It's totally different, but he tells us she has no teeth in the text boxes. This is him visualizing, right? His job. See, the art is damn good for both of them. You can't pick one versus the other. I love them both. But I want you guys to know about both of these books. So, the biggest thing I wanted, I'm not going to go over every single one here, but I did go over, if you guys have any questions, by all means, but I did go over every single chapter and that stuff. But one big thing I think anybody should know is since I listened to the textbook on purpose, both of these books have the ending happen the same, but is different than the actual textbook and the movie. So what happens in the textbook is, which one of my times I questioned, why did the Brotherhood did not kill Winston or Julia? So why didn't they kill him? So I guess that they actually won. So in both of these versions, both Nesti and Namai have Winston gets shot from the back of the head. And then there's a part where you wonder whether maybe it's just his visualization. But see, Namai has him get shot in the back of the head. And we don't, after I finished both books and the textbook and the movie, I thought maybe he's just visualizing it and hoping for that. But in the textbook and the movie, he does not get killed in the end. He goes his life, and he has been brainwashed. And now loves Big Brother. See? And then the end of this one. I wanted to show you. So he's in the cafeteria in the end, and he has been brainwashed. And look, see? He gets the shot too. In both versions of the book. But not in the textbook, because I listened to the textbook. In the textbook, he learns to love Big Brother. Thanks a lot for listening. If you have any questions, by all means, let me know.